Sometimes a person wonders, where is God? Can I see God in the world? Could I see him in my life? And I'd like to share with you a perspective of history, the history of the Jewish people. And let's begin with a little bit what you may consider a strange beginning, but here we go. Adolf Hitler began his career speaking in the beer pubs in Bavaria. Typically at a meeting there'd be maybe 200 people, and you could see Hitler in the front of the room ranting and raving. The problem with Germany is the Jews. It's the fatherland of the Jews, and I choose the fatherland. On and on he would shriek. The story is told that at one such meeting, in the back of the room is an old man, obviously Jewish, and after his hour-long tirade, the audience leaps to its feet in adoring applause, and the old man is clapping along with everyone else. Hitler notices it, and when everyone files out, Hitler walks over to this old man and says, "Don't you believe that what I say I intend to keep? Don't you think I'm serious when I mean that I will rid Germany of the Jews?" As the story goes, the old man, undaunted, looks at Hitler and says, "Oh, I believe you. But you have to remember that we're an old people. We've been around for much, much of history. Hundreds, thousands of years ago, there was an evil king, Pharaoh. He enslaved our people. When God saved us from Pharaoh, what a beautiful holiday we have. Passover, the family gets together, we celebrate. Long after that came an evil man, Haman. He tried to annihilate the Jewish people. When God saved us from him, what a beautiful holiday we have, Purim, celebration, merrymaking. Along came the Syrian Greeks. They tried to oppress us. When God saved us from them, we have the beautiful holiday of Hanukkah. But you, Hitler, you hate us more than all of them. And when God saves us from you, what a holiday, what a celebration there'll be. There is no celebration that marks God saving us from Hitler. There are no family gatherings. There are no joyous occasions. But there is an interesting reality. And that is that we are still here. We, the ancient people, we, the only people, are still around. And we still celebrate Passover. We still keep Purim. We still have Hanukkah. After thousands of years, every nation on the planet had its moment in the stars, had its moment of glory, and then it disappeared. Of all the ancient peoples, the only one still around is the Jewish people, keeping its traditions, keeping its ways. And despite the Nazis' attempt to annihilate this people, we still are here. But you have to understand that it's been a rocky 2,000 years. Since the destruction of the Second Temple almost 2,000 years ago, we lived through crusades, Spanish Inquisitions, blood libels, pogroms, persecutions, mass murders, gassings. If there was ever a diabolical means of a man killing another man, know that it was used in full measure on the Jews. If there was ever a man's way of torturing another human being, know that it was used full measure on the Jews. We've been gassed, shot, hung, beaten, tortured to death, and yet, ironically, we are still around, still keeping our ways, still the same nation, and all of our enemies of the past are no longer here. The Egyptian Empire is no longer. The Romans, the Persians, the Babylonians, their empire rose. It was here for a moment, and it is no longer, and yet the Jewish people is still here. And if you want to see the hand of God, if you want to see God's hand actively involved in the running of the world, study Jewish history. Open a page of Jewish history, and you'll see his people being protected, being ushered from exile to exile, but always being guarded. And you'll see God actively involved in the world, actively involved in keeping his nation. Now, maybe you'll say, I'm biased, I'm Jewish, so I have a prejudice in this. But I want to share with you something from a very completely objective standpoint. I want to share with you a quote from a secular historian, not Jewish and not religious in any sense. It's an article called The Jewish Dispersion by Lejinsky, and these are his words. For 1900 years, from the destruction of the Second Temple to the establishment of the modern state of Israel, the Jewish people have wandered around the world. This wandering was precipitated by intolerable spiritual and physical persecution, and the scope of the Jews' wandering is only reflected in the lands from which he was expelled. And now Lazinski will give us a catalog of the lands that we, the Jewish people, were expelled from. In the 3rd century, they were expelled from Carthage, North Africa. In the 5th century, from Alexandria, Egypt. In the 6th, from France. In the 7th century, from the Visigoth Empire. In the 9th century, they were expelled from Italy. In the 11th, from Mainz, Germany. In the 12th, from France. In the 13th, from England. The 14th, from Switzerland, Hungary, Germany. In the 15th, from Austria, Spain, Lithuania, Portugal, Germany. Would you like a catalog of every nation that existed? Bohemia, Austria, Papal States of Netherlands, Ukraine, Lithuania, North Africa. If you'd like to study Jewish history, all you have to do is look at the globe. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a little exercise. Would you like to see God in the world? Would you like to see God guarding his people? Go to Manhattan on a nice sunny day and look out at the United Nations building and study all of those beautiful, colorful flags furling in the wind. And I give you a challenge. Find me a flag of a nation that didn't expel us. Find us a nation that didn't murder us, that didn't exile us, and you'll only find such a flag if there were no Jews in the country at the time, or the country didn't exist when they were there, because we've been expelled from every single continent, every single nation, generation after generation, and those mighty empires, those powerful dynasties that stood against us are no longer, and we alone are. The Visigoth Empire is no longer, nor are any of those. But I want to share one last perspective. The final address, Adolf Hitler from the bunkers. This was 1945. The war was lost. There was no hope. And he knew it. But in one last radio address from underneath the ground, deep within the bunkers, he broadcast his final message, and these were his words. Above all, I charge the leaders of the nation and those under them to the scrupulous observance of the laws of race and to the merciless opposition to the universal poisoner of all peoples, international Jewry. His Third Reich was set up to last at least 1,000 years. It didn't last. And yet, astonishingly, the one lone sheep amongst the 70 wolves is still here. All the great nations, all the great powers rose up to destroy us, and they aren't here. Never to be heard from, never to be seen again, and astonishingly, the Jew is still here. And if you'd like to understand where God is, read Jewish history. If you want to see God, see him protecting his people, ushering him his unique, special people. And when you see this people banished and exiled, yet always protected, you're seeing God, you're seeing God's people, you're seeing the Jew, who is not just the symbol of eternity. The Jew has a purpose, has a plan, and the Jew is eternity.